qualified for the World Cup. Go and compete.
Magic moments for the Republic of Ireland and their English manager Jack Charlton.
Sheedy shoots into the net. Kevin Sheedy is equalised. Rifle past Shilton. The Irish are level.
We'll prepare and we'll go and we'll do our best. We'll put them under pressure.
And Brighton has lost it. Quinn has got it. And Jack Charlton's masterstroke pays off.
We'll put them under pressure.
O'Leary doesn't hesitate. Comes up and scores. Goes down on his knees. Head to the ground. And it's all green. It's all Ireland. They're through to the World Cup quarter-finals. And it's there from Ray Houghton. He does a bowl over. Enjoyed as Houghton. And what a start for the Irish here.
Just a selection of some of the golden moments that Ireland enjoyed under the reign of Jack Charlton. With the Republic of Ireland about to play in Euro 2012, we thought that we should reminisce a little. So for the next 90 minutes, we'll talk penalties, pints and meeting the Pope as we revisit the ups and downs of that colourful reign. Joining me on a trip down memory lane, three Ireland legends, John Aldridge, Pat Bonner and David O'Leary. Evening to all three of you.
Good evening.
Smiling at that as you listen to some of those, David?
Yes, don't talk to me about penalties, but you can speak to Aldo about pints of Guinness, no problem. We'll sort that one out.
I'll talk about the Pope.
And the Pope took the Packy the best. So you wanted to see he was a ex-goalkeeper himself, so that's the man to speak to.
So when we get to the Pope, it's just me and you talking about that.
He's the man.
Was it a time that brought a lot of smiles?
Oh, absolutely fantastic. It was a great, and when you hear that song, you go straight back to it and reminisce. It was heady times, and Euro 88 and 1994. We just see we had a squad of players who got on infamously. We all really backed each other up on and off the pitch. It was more like a family atmosphere. There's no cliques as perhaps there was in England at the time. We were just one happy family.
And I'd have to say I was doing something speaking about the way, say, the players now are travelling to the Euros and the way they're looked after. We had a set of players, as John was saying there, great players playing with all the big clubs in the Premier League at that time. But they were a great bunch of people, and probably let the FAA off with a lot, because at that club level, the way they knew how they travelled to be looked after, and some of the stuff we had to put up with on those FAI trips was just frightening. But that showed in ways, what people they were, and I suppose that spirit and togetherness kept everybody together. And probably if we'd have kicked up a little bit, Roy Keane wouldn't have walked out years later, if you know what I mean, if that thing sorted out. But they were. It was like, probably John or Packy would say, it was a club for all of us international. It was like a club atmosphere, and everybody, if you got injured, you were gutted you missed the international match, because you look forward to that next trip and look forward to the togetherness.
We were always happy to come back to Ireland, back to Dublin, for many reasons. Football for one, but also meeting the guys again and maybe going out for the odd pint and reminiscing about what was going on at club level. But it was almost a relaxing time to go back. We took our football seriously. We trained hard, but we were so passionate about playing for our country. And I think that came across to everybody. And even the new guys who came in, like John and Ray, and that, it didn't matter. I think a week John probably into being with the squad, you felt part of it. And I think that was unique for an Irish team.
Obviously for me and Ray, with the Glasgow accent and the Scouse accents, you go in and you're not sure, but lads, arms round you, right away. Kevin and Liam Brady, backing the lads, Dave, He took us in straight away, and you felt very comfortable, right at home.
Plus, we knew they were good players. We knew they were good players.
Aldo was telling me about Dublin after about 3 days, so I knew he settled in.
But you know what? Lads used to, Jack said, you've got to come in for Monday training, Monday afternoon, Monday 2 o'clock. Well, we get the tom-tom drums out, because there was no mobiles then. We'd come over on the Sunday. Tell the wives we've got to be over on the Sunday. What we'd do, we'd have a bit of dinner, and then we'd go out on the lash, and we'd have a good Sunday night together,
And the managers, hopefully, they'd hope they'd get you back for the following Saturday's match.
Do you think the togetherness that you obviously displayed at the time, do you think that was just because of how you all were as a group of personalities, or do you think that was partly fostered by Jack's management?
I think, look, I'd me runs in with Jack, but everybody says I don't get on. I get on with Jack. I like him. I thought he acted stupid at times myself, but I liked him, and he was good for Ireland. He was good for the team. He came in and he had a way of playing, and that was the way we were going to do it. And his strength was really his easygoingness, in my opinion, off, and the silly things he did that made the lads laugh and probably brought them together again. And he knew how to handle the players, and he knew, I think, going into the big tournaments, how to make the players feel at ease. And there was a great togetherness of everybody wanting to do well.
The other thing he did, Dave, and you'll remember back to the early days before Jack's time, and I was probably from Donegal, but there was grouping from maybe England, like Jerry Payton and Chris Hutton and Tony Galvin, those guys, and then you had the Dublin lads, and the Dublin lads used to go back to their families in the afternoon to visit, and did a wee chance to be over for a couple of days, so they went back. Jack stopped that. And I think it was a good thing, because you had a group in a hotel, and I had some friends there, so I'd go out and see them. The lads would be back home, and there was a disunity.
I never thought, but that's a good point, Packy, because I probably was one of them that you would have that free time after training or after lunch, and I would clear off and come back in the evening. I'd either go and see my grandmother, my parents, and that way. And yeah, you probably lost a bit of that, and that's a good
Jack
point.
changed it right away, and it brought everybody together. We used to go to pictures together. We used to go off doing other things, go into town for a cup of coffee after training. We'd all go and do a bit of shopping, then we'd meet up and have a cup of coffee down in Mary Rose's. Was it?
The big. I think the big overall thing though was you had a really great set of players. You know, they were really top class players there, and what you had that with then is a great togetherness. And you know, they had to put up with a lot and laughed a lot of things off, where I think you see the way the Irish players are looked after now, and it's not knocking them, it's right and professional. We could have been a lot better, but I think we were so tolerant, a lot of the players, that they wanted to play, they wanted to get on with it, and they did get on with it.
And in some ways that brings you together as well, doesn't it? If you don't have everything handed to you on a plate, and it isn't a lap of luxury, there is a kind of all mucking in together.
Yeah, we
used to make
were
a laugh
different
at
breed.
Yeah, you have a laugh about it, don't you?
We were different breed, you know. We were very Labour-like, if you want. We were brought up the right way. We had to, fight for our corner, fight for our cause, and fight for your position better. Like, we all know what the modern day player, like, they've had the silver spoon in the mouth. But we were all right down to earth, all the lads. It's a great bunch, a fantastic bunch. And some of the things we after the game, we would all go out after the game. So some with the families.
Sadly, you'd go out.
We would actually go back into town on the bus and we'd get a police escort to a club.
Can I say this interview?
Nothing like drawing attention to yourself,
guys. We must not give away any stories here.
No. Well, trust me, they will. They'll give away some stories over the course of the next hour and a half. Let's go back to when Jack took over as Ireland manager. He succeeded Owen Hand in 1986. He decided that his first task was to recruit a new batch of players, which, as we've already heard, included a certain John Aldridge.
When you take a job on to a national side, you never know about the players that you're getting in. There wasn't that many, and Morissettis came to me one day and he said, I want you to go down to Oxford. He said, there's 2 or 3 players there that you might want to use. So I said, okay. So I jumped in the car and I drove down to Oxford and went to see the game. After the match, I went and saw John and said, would you like to come and play for Ireland? And he said, oh yeah, I'd love to. And then he said, what about him over there? This is Ray Houghton. I said, no, he's Scottish. No, he said he's got Irish connections. I said, has he? So I said, Ray. And he came across. And I said, you got some relations in Ireland? He said, yeah, my mother's from the East Coast. And I said, well, would you like to play for the Irish? And he said, yeah, I'd love to.
I think the webcams are on. If you want to watch us on the 5 Live website, you can, because watching David and Pat and John's reaction to Jack's stories is going to be quite a treat this evening, I think. That's how it happened then. Ray Houghton knows. No.
We're laughing because Jack got it
in
wrong.
layman's terms, yeah. No,
John will tell you.
We were playing at Aston Villa in the semi-final of the Milk Cup, which is the Carling Cup now. And I knew Jack had gone to watch us at Villa Park, and it was 2-2. And he come up to me in the players' lounge. You know, Jack's coming towards you with this cap on. You know, I was a little bit, intimidated with his presence. World Cup winner, and he came over and he said, "Oh, John, Jack Charlton, the new manager of Ireland." I said, "Yes, I know, yeah." He said, "Well played today. He scored 2 great goals." I said, "Thank you very much." He said, "Do you want to play for Ireland?" I said, "Of course." Like he said. I said, "What Dave Langan over there? He was the instigator." I said, "Oh, Dave played, good lad, and he plays for Ireland." I said, "Yeah." I said, "The lad next to him, Ray Houghton." He said, "He played well tonight, didn't he?" I said, "Yeah, his dad's from Donegal." He said, "Oh, well, get him over here, he can have a game for Ireland as well." Basically, that's how he got Ray. He got 2 for the price of 1.
What a great player he was for
Yeah,
Ireland.
Tremendous,
What a great
absolutely
player.
tremendous.
Did you feel that he had an ad hoc approach to recruiting players for Ireland?
I didn't care as long as they're great. Who would turn down Ray Houghton? Who would turn down John Aldridge? The one thing about the players was when they did come over, no matter what, everybody was, there was jokes. If you flew over Ireland at that time, Jack would give you a cap, if you're but those players really wanted to play and do well, and as I say, they blended in straight away, and they weren't just people making up the numbers. They were players top players with the top, league sides in England at the time, winning leagues, winning FA Cups, and ever, and they were.
But the history also is that before Jack's time, that there was a lot of players born over here, played for Steve Highway would have been one that he was actually. And Tony Grealish, many.
Well, you mentioned Chris Hughton, didn't you?
Chris Hughton, of course, and Chris. There's no more an Irish man than Chris Hughton. If you sit and talk with Chris, and he was lucky that Brian brought him back to be the assistant manager, and he absolutely loved it. Totally committed to the Irish cause. Tony Gallivan's another one.
And Andy Townsend.
All of those, but before Jack's time.
Sorry, yeah.
So it was sort of the history was there, and what you've got to remember, what our history as a republic is, that people had to leave Ireland to go out to work, and their grandparents and their parents over here, and they always felt very Irish, and all of those kids who were brought up then became, and I'm sure, John, your family's the same if you go back far enough, they were devoted Irish people, and for John to get an opportunity to come and play for his country, like my son or Dave's son or that, and my son played at under 17 and 19 level, and he's got his jersey up on the wall, and he absolutely thinks he's Irish, even though he was born in Glasgow. So that you can never bring that away from them.
That's a very good point, actually. That in amongst the jokes that flew around at the time, as you say, about flying over Ireland, that people ignore the heritage and how much you do believe that you come from where your parents are from.
Yeah, of course. I always knew about my mum's family coming from Athlone and Galway originally. We were brought up, and we were nurtured and tutored.
I played with Mark Lawrenson, as good a centre half you'll ever get in the world, and he wanted to. He could have played for England. He could have had so many caps for them, like a lot of the lads that came. But he was just absolutely fantastic, and he wanted to win everything with Ireland.
It's a good point, actually. When you think back, we missed out at the European Championship with Jack. We qualified with Mark and Liam Brady, 2 unbelievable players. And when you go back to that qualifying time, probably jumping ahead now, but the team that we played Scotland up in Hampden was an incredible team, and I quote this team when I speak. Paul McGrath actually played right back. Ronnie Whelan played left back.
He was just McGrath. There's so many there.
We had with Kevin, we had Mick, we had Ray Houghton on the right, we had Liam Brady and Mark Lawrenson in the centre, and Tony Galvin left, and John and Frank up front, all with Manchester United, all Liverpool, all won in championships. I was in goals with Celtic, so we were on the odd championship, and they were all playing in European competitions. Dave would have been around, not in the team, but on the bench. Niall Quinn might have been. I'm not so sure if he was in the qualifying rounds, but he came in. All fantastic players playing at a very, very top level in that team. So you could get into the team first of all, foremost.
See, a lot of people also said the players, that Jack wouldn't allow us to express ourselves on the pitch, especially the midfield players, but his philosophy was when he went out to Mexico World Cup, when he got the job, and he looked at the way the game was played, and he knew he had to play to a certain way and certain strengths, and so we couldn't put the ball at risk across the back four or across the midfield. He stipulated that straight away, and obviously the full-backs would get the ball and put it into the corner, and I'd have to get the ball. We pushed up to the halfway line, the centre-halves pushed it up, and you pushed onto the opposition, and you played them in their half. When the sweepers would get the ball, or the 3 at the back, I was asked to chase the 3 of them, chase the ball. and that's to run around like a chicken with no head to chase the ball. But straight away, what that led to other people coming on top.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, we had this theme of playing, and every team on the planet hated playing against us because they were used to getting time on the ball. We were in the faces all the time.
And did you find it difficult to fit into that way of playing if it was in contradiction to how you played at club level?
Well, look, I was not the type of centre-half that Jack wanted, or Mark Lawrence. I mean, I remember Jack telling me, you go and pass the ball to your other centre-half like you do at Arsenal, have you off the pitch. And that was Jack. That's not... the one thing Packy was saying about the teams of earlier, and the great players were in that, we never qualified for anything. We were very unlucky in one year where we got a load of points and we got done on goal difference by France. But the big thing that Jack came in and said, this is my team, I'm going to manage, and this is the way we're going to do it. And if you don't like it, and that's the way it was. Now, was it total football? Was it this cosmic? No way. But it was effective for what he wanted, and that's what he got out of it. And if you didn't like it, so. The Mark Lawrence or myself, Mick and Kevin, no disrespect to them, different type of centre, more like Jack's centre-halves. They fitted Jack's way better. The Liam Brady, as great a player as you could get Ireland's ever had. Now, was he Jack's ideal player of coming, getting her off the back foot? Jack didn't want that.
No, he didn't.
And he's not saying Liam Brady was a bad player. No. It's just he didn't fit the way.
What he tried
Jack
to do with
wanted to
Liam,
play.
he tried to change Liam. Liam was later in his career, so he was never going to maybe adjust properly. But he tried to change Liam a little bit to get the ball off the front players or further up the pitch. Liam was used to dropping back, a bit like what Johnny Giles did, and how he's played the game originally under Johnny, to go back, get it off the centre halves and play. Jack didn't want that. But John's point, I think, is crucial, is that Jack looked at the opposition that played in the Mexico World Cup. He looked at the European teams and said, if we put the ball at risk, these teams scored, nick it off a score, we're never going to get it back. So let's play differently and let's get in their faces high up the pitch. And this was the big thing. And he made it simple for us because that's how we did it.
Some of the games, Packy, I remember West Germany in one game of that, and he said, how these are going to play. Franz Beckenbauer was the man. Franz, he was tippy-tappy player, and they're going to play tippy-tappy stuff. And I remember we were against Italy, it was Baresi, Maldini playing. He said, the way these Baresi and Maldini is going to be tippy-tappy. And that told you about Jackie. He didn't like that tippy-tappy stuff at the back.
And don't forget, you mentioned Baggio, but he called him Baggio.
And he was describing this great Spanish player in that group, Michel, and he was going, this Michael is that way. I think some of the lads were saying Michael wasn't even playing today. I think he was injured and Jack hadn't been informed.
Yeah, going back on Liam Brady, there's a great example of what we're talking about. Liam's testimonial was against Germany, West Germany at the time, and Liam played, although he was getting phased out. And we win him 1-0, and he put the ball at risk across midfield. They made it 1-1. It was Liam's testimonial. Jack substituted before half time.
Yeah,
before half time, which was it wasn't what everyone expected. At least wait till half time. But no, Jack made a massive example.
I think we came in that time. We were all looking at each other, thinking, you could have waited till half time stuff. Be more diplomatic than that, but. That was Jack's way again. He was very to the point. Yeah.
How did Liam react?
Oh, he wasn't happy.
No.
I think it's a long time ago. Thinking back, remembering the dressing room. No, and look, if it had been any of us, I don't think we'd have been happy personally ourselves either. On it.
Let's go back to when the world sat up and took notice of Jack Charlton's Ireland. Then the date, the 12th of June, 1988. The place, Stuttgart.
And the final whistle goes. And my heaven, it's a great day for the Irish. And one of the heroes of 1966 has undone his own country. Jack Charlton has taken the Republic of Ireland to an historic victory.
If people listening are, I don't know, maybe coming back from the bank holiday weekend, kids sat in the back of the car, they probably won't get just what a historic day that was. I mean, I can remember sitting watching that game thinking, and being genuinely gobsmacked by it. Ireland 1, England 0, Ray Houghton's early header. Ireland's opening game in a major tournament, Pat.
Yeah, of course, and we didn't know what to expect. It was such an incredible day for us. Our first major championship against England and everybody, of course, in Ireland wanted to beat England at that time. I know it's different here, but for us to get off to such a start, we got, I think it was after about 8 minutes or so, Ray scored a goal, and again it was a ball played down to the left, but I think Kevin Moran played it and it was knocked in, and it was a bit of a scrappy goal, but Ray finished it really well over Peter Shilton. And then we had to hang on for the next. We were never going to maybe score. I don't know if we had that many chances.
We had a few
half
chances. Yeah.
But we weren't opening England up by any means.
No.
But we felt very comfortable going into the game, and the fact that we were playing England, because it was going to be like a normal English type game with our
derby, wasn't it?
Derby game, and our guys playing in the English league. I was probably the only one,
and the
maybe that didn't
expectation
play.
was on England. For all the great players we had, the expectation was this is a game. It's going to be a hard game for England, but England will win it.
But we believed in ourselves. We knew in the dressing room. You look around, you see Paul McGrath. You want to be on the same side as it. He was unbelievable that day, and we all looked at each other, and we knew we were a match for England that day.
Yeah,
they might have a little more flamboyance than us, but we really.
And I think the other incredible thing that England left Glenn Hoddle out of the team. I think they played Neil Webb that particular day in the middle of the pitch alongside Brian Robson. And we were shocked with that. We said, well, how can they leave Glenn Hoddle out? And then suddenly, by the time half time came, we were pretty tired after chasing him down, and then on comes Glenn Hoddle. And we had to still hang on for another 40 minutes.
About Hoddle.
Yeah.
But you did actually, Packy, he's not mentioned, but he pulled off a couple of cracking saves from Gary Lineker in particular, didn't you?
I actually had a good game. I will admit I had a good game.
And what a win, and it was really that sent England onto a very disappointing start of a very disappointing championship for them.
They had a dreadful championship. I mean, what were they like on the pitch last year? Could you sense them getting more and more frustrated?
Yeah, without doubt. It was always important that we got the first goal. That goes without saying, but we all know that the pressure that's put on England. We know the hype and the media, which have never been friendly towards them. They're always looking for something to go on and make it harder for them.
And I remember Tony Adams, leaving to go to that tournament, and he'd come back a different bloke. He'd come back definitely. There was still in pre-season and going into the following season, there was a follow-up of the disappointment and how England played, how he played, the stick they got afterwards.
They got hammered, didn't he?
Yeah, and he come back with his confidence really being knocked.
So from your point of view, did you hear these stories? Players come back from tournaments, different nationalities in the dressing room. There's a bit of banter. There's a bit of Mickey taking after a tournament. Did you actually sense, because he was different, that you left well alone?
I mean, dressing rooms are a cruel place.
Yeah.
You've got to stand up and take the banter and the stick and everything else. But at times, in general, most dressing rooms are a decent bunch of people, and they suss out when it's not. And you could see with Tony being put through the shredder, like a lot of the England players through that summer afterwards.
We had Barnsley and Beasley and Steve McMahon. So we just hammered them. me, Ray, and Ronnie just hammered them. It's great.
But it was that was a big game. There was more to it than just a game. There was everybody knew each other on the pitch, and it was such a rivalry.
The other interesting one in that first game was that Terry Butcher was actually missing also, and Mark Wright played in that game. Terry didn't actually play, and he was a big player for them, the captain, of course, and so on. So that gave us a lot of confidence before we went into the game too, with Glenn Hoddle and Terry Butcher missing from that particular lineup.
I mean, you went toe to toe in that group. I mean, take England out of it. The other two sides in that group were two of the great teams of Europe at the time, weren't they? I mean, the Dutch were the best team in Europe. I mean, but the Soviets weren't that bad either. And you got to.
They were a great team.
They were
really good. Against Russia, we played probably the best 90 minutes of football under Jack Charlton that day. We drew 1-1.
You were 1-up with 16 minutes left.
That's right. Yeah, they scored pretty late. I missed a golden chance and all. I'll never forget. I should have scored. But we played. We actually played football. So we got it down and played to certain degrees.
Jack's tactics, I thought was spot on. They played with a sweeper, and he was worried about that, because what they used to do is play out the sweeper, play to the full back, get us pulled across one side, and then back to sweeper and change it across the other side. And then his mantra was always they would get players running. So what he stopped was them changing the play, because Ray would stay wide on the left or on the other side, and it stopped their game completely, and they would knock it back to Dacief, and he would knock it down the middle, and Kevin or Mick would win the ball, and we played fantastic football on that particular night.
And it was a hard group. They were a good team. Real good teams in that group.
Well, you were within 8 minutes of drawing with the Dutch.
That would have took us through.
Which would have taken you through.
We could have won through against Russia if we'd have won the game. Yeah. We lost with about 8 or 9 minutes left, and then gone in against a Dutch team, 3 o'clock I think in the afternoon. Gelsenkirchen.
And you break down their players, what they had at the time, really at the top of
Van Basten, Gullit,
Rijkaard.
Van Basten is as good as centre forward.
Koeman. Fantastic.
Wouters, middle of the pitch. Good team.
And to be fair, the goal he scored was a very fortunate one. I still think it was offside.
Wim Kieft actually scored the goal. Van Basten was about 2 or 3 yards offside. Let's blame the linesman. The linesman then.
You said Paddy should have saved it off still, didn't you?
Spun and it's cricket with
I was
those
behind, and when he headed the ball, I actually thought it was going wide, and this wicked spin sort of took it in. It was like a googly ball.
You said he should have saved it.
No chance, Pat. No unlucky there.
There are lots of rumours that surround Jack Charlton's reign as Ireland manager. Is it true that in Euro 88 you were initially checked into a nudist camp?
Yep.
We were in a nudist camp.
It was unbelievable.
We were in a nudist camp.
Unbelievable. That was Jack's fault, by the way.
World Cup in Sicily, we were nearly we're in tents on the side of a motorway, weren't we?
What happened in Gelsenkirchen was we were checked into the hotel, and we went in next door. There was a nice sauna, and there was a bit of a swimming pool. We'll all go in there. And as we were in, some of the lads, John I think was one of them, in the sauna, next thing the door opened, this lovely young female came in with very little, nothing on, I believe.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of a panic.
What it was, I jumped in. I'll tell you the real story. I always used to go for a swim.
You can't tell the real story.
I swim in the sauna. So I'm swimming next minute, and I look, and there's these 2 old fellas, about 60, walking with the meat and 2 veg along the way, and I thought, what's this all about? So I dived out. I got in the sauna, and I'm getting my head around it and going, I don't know what's going on here. Next minute, as Packy said, this likeable, nice young lady came in with very little on, well, nothing on, and her husband followed, and that's when I just got out of it. Listen, all the lads are clamouring.
after all that, we are so thorough and everything else. Pre-season, we go away, training place in Germany. What do? The same thing. Go into this beautiful place, all of a sudden, everybody starts appearing naked. Don Howe, Tainio, they go absolutely. What can they do?
Don Howe didn't get naked, did he?
Not just with Ireland. But Don could lose it, but he lose it that time?
We're reminiscing about Ireland under Jack Charlton with David O'Leary and Pat Bonner and John Aldridge on 5 Live Sport until 9 o'clock. And then 9 till half 9, we'll actually look at the current Ireland team and their chances in this group in Euro 2012 with Spain and Italy and Croatia. It's 5 Live Sport. It's 2 minutes past 8, and Faye Rusco has the news.
Online at bbc.co.uk/5live.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
The Queen has described her Diamond Jubilee celebrations as a humbling experience. In a recorded message broadcast tonight, she said thank you.
It has touched me deeply to see so many thousands of families, neighbours and friends celebrating together in such a happy atmosphere. But Prince Philip and I want to take this opportunity to offer our special thanks and appreciation to all those who have had a hand in organising these Jubilee celebrations.
The Duke of Edinburgh is said to have watched today's events from hospital where he's being treated for a bladder infection. Prince Edward says his father is getting better. The Queen's former press secretary, Charles Anson, says she'll have missed her husband.
She doesn't show her feelings in public, but I'm sure the pleasure of sharing the exhilaration of the Jubilee would have been greater if Prince Philip had been there, but she'll be glad that they were able to share the first half of the Jubilee celebrations at least.
In other news, one of the patients being treated for Legionnaire's disease in Edinburgh has died and the number of cases is rising. NHS Lothian says it's now dealing with 17 confirmed and 15 suspected cases. 5 Live's James Shaw has more.
They have located cooling towers, a total of 16 cooling towers at 4 locations in the southwest of Edinburgh, which they think could be the source of the airborne drops, tiny drops of water, which are breathed in and which cause people to contract the disease. If it turns out this is not the location and they're still looking for a location, it is still possible that more people could become infected.
A US official has said Al-Qaeda's second-in-command, Abu Yahya, was killed in one of its drone strikes in Pakistan earlier this week. The news comes after Islamabad called the deputy US ambassador to the foreign ministry to protest against the attacks in its territory. UN aid agencies say the Syrian government has agreed to let them into the country to speed up relief operations. The United Nations says at least 1 million people need urgent help. And tributes have been paid to a British soldier who was killed in Afghanistan on Sunday. Private Greg Stone from 3rd Battalion, the Yorkshire Regiment, was 20 years old. His commanding officer said he died protecting the lives of others.
Thank you, Faye. The sport this evening. World number 1 Novak Djokovic is through to the semi-finals of the French Open after a 5-set marathon against Jo-Wilfried Tsonga. Djokovic saved 4 match points in the 4th set before taking the decider by 6-1. Roger Federer also needed 5 sets to make it into the last 4. He came from 2 down to beat Juan Martín del Potro. In the women's draw, there were wins for Sam Stosur and Sarah Errani. Rafael van der Vaart has told the BBC he's surprised that Rio Ferdinand's not been selected by England for Euro 2012. The Tottenham midfielder reckons Ferdinand's still one of the best defenders in the world. Meanwhile, Manchester United have today confirmed the signing of Shinji Kagawa. United say they'll release more details about the transfer when the Japan international's had his medical and received a work permit. He's won the Bundesliga twice with Borussia Dortmund. And it's been an historic day for Scotland's rugby union team on their tour of Australia. Greg Laidlaw kicked a penalty in stoppage time to give them a 9-6 win over the Wallabies in Newcastle, Scotland's first victory in Australia since 1982.
The referee blows his whistle and Spain are champions of Europe.
Our Euro 2012 coverage starts with our tournament preview in Thursday's 5 Live Sport from 7 and on Friday from 5. The opening match of the tournament. Live commentary of Poland against Greece. And that's followed by Russia against the Czech Republic.
Every game live. Euro 2012.
On 5 Live and 5 Live Sports Extra.
Maradona, Maradona. Keep him from the ball until he begs. Look behind you, Pro Diego. Mick McCarthy, bite your legs. Packy Bonner, he's a gunner. He won't have a single thing to do. Take up Nitton, Packy Bonner. Lineker can do that too. Give a sermon to the Germans. They thought that the wall had died till they came up against the Irish. Now they know it's all a lie. Give it a lash, Jack. Give it a lash, Jack. Never, never, never say no.
Some amazing rhyming couplets in there. That's Give It a Lash, Jack by Liam Harrison and the Goal Celebrities. None other than Bono called it the greatest Irish song ever written. John Aldridge, Pat Bonner and David O'Leary.
I went platinum, honestly.
Did it go platinum? But Bono bought all the copies. It includes, do you know what the line is about you in that, John?
No, I don't know. I can't remember.
The immortal line is this: Johnny Aldridge showed the Maltese he hadn't lost his touch. He's holding back now for the crack until the day we get revenge on the Dutch. Beautifully. Your rhyming one was very good, though, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I know what it means, though.
Was music... there are so many songs about Jack Charlton and the Irish team around that time. Was music a big part of the squad?
Music was a big thing going to the game. You know, I think it was Charlie, was it? Charlie Lee, we'd have a tape, put it on, and the boys that... didn't know the songs, had to learn them, and they learned them very quickly. And
Mick was singing them down the aisle, wasn't he?
That was a big thing. Going to the games to get to get it. We'd get on the coach and travel and just get the relaxation going. And I think with Jack believed that little bit of that was a way of taking the edge off you before you got the game.
Absolutely. Charlie was given a special job to
Who's Charlie?
Charlie O'Leary was our kit man.
Right,
our little kit man. He was about 5 foot tall. He's now 87, still alive and doing okay. I spoke to him recently. Great man. But his job, as part of it, even though he was doing the kit, was to get the tape ready for the bus. Yeah. And there was so much panic about when to put the tape on, get it on, so that it coincided with us hitting the stadium at the right time with the right song.
We hit it once from him. He nearly had a heart attack. And then we had the physiotherapist called Mick Byrne, who was he's like a father figure to us. You know, whatever you want,
very relaxed fella, Mick.
And he'd be walking down the aisle singing all the songs, waving his fist, but it was brilliant. And I always remember, funny enough, after we beat England in Stuttgart, in the hotel, the Dubliners came in of a night, and Jack allowed us to have a drink till 12 o'clock. And we had a massive big sing-song. It was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it's fabulous. Absolutely brilliant.
You can obviously tell by the discussion that we're having that the players really wanted to get a call-up and play for Ireland. And for Jack Charlton, that was a key factor in their rise.
I enjoyed the lads coming in as well, and they all did. That was one of the good bits. I mean, I used to have players phone me up, and I hadn't been picked in the 20 that I used to take over, the 22. And they used to say, well, can we still come? And I used to say, yeah, if you want to come, you can come. And then on the bus, the lads used to sing, we love you, Jackie, we do, we love you, Jackie. And I used to say, okay, we'll stop for a pint, but you're only having one. You're having 1 pint each, but one of you lot will pay for them.
Which they did.
No, they didn't. They never paid for them.
It's happy and it's positive. You got the music and you're allowed a beer. Was there another side to him as well? I mean, could he be a strict disciplinarian?
And you know, people always thought that Jack was one that was going to come in the dressing room and have a real go at the players if they weren't doing it. I can never remember him doing that. Possibly because we did okay as a group. We were very experienced. He would tell you, but he never shouted and bawled the way that some managers did at club level. He never did it. He respected us for that. He would tell you, he would make his point, and if you didn't carry out those points or those tactics, then he would probably take you out of the team or so on. I'm sure it happened a few. It didn't happen me because I was in goals probably, and that. But he, you know, I think he also thought clearly about the team and about the way we wanted to play, and no matter who we played, this was our style. He always said, and I always remember him saying that if he gave instruction to Dave O'Leary, to John, to me, and he said 2 or 3 things to Dave, 2 or 3 things differently to John, 2 or 3 things, there was maybe a chance that we weren't actually thinking of the same.
And I don't think
maybe he made it very simple.
Maybe the lads, you've just said it, he didn't complicate things. He kept it very basic and. You know, do your jobs and we'll be fine. You know what jobs you have to do. He didn't go into too much about the opposition. Didn't, you know, speak for days or even on the day of the game ridiculously too much on them. It was about us, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. And what he was, I think he was a fantastic communicator at times. You never heard from him too much in between games. He didn't pick up the phone to him and say how you're doing, or even if you were injured or you were out of the team and you're sick, Dave. But he was the same. I had an injury and I was out for 3 months with a disc operation. Jack never phoned me up, and when I arrived in, he says, "Oh, I heard you had a bit of an operation, you know," and my career could have been finished. Dave was out of the team for such a long time.
I hope I'm not trying to knock Jack out. This is his strength and it was worked. I remember, and we get back to that, we played John at Liverpool to win that famous night to win the league, and on that was a Friday night, and on the Sunday we're playing Hungary for the Euro Championships, and we get in on the Saturday there, and we've missed training all and everybody, and somebody said, be down, go up, rest in your rooms. The lads have been training the afternoon on the Saturday. Come down Saturday evening, we're going to watch a bit about Hungary. Jack was going fishing in the afternoon, a little bit. We come down, no sign of Jack. No sign of, didn't see him. And then the following day on the Sunday, we're having a pre-match about Jack, and Jack said, well, I wasn't playing against Hungary, you were. In that way, and he was having such a good time fishing, he didn't come back. Now, the bottom line of that is we won 2-0, and we played really well, and that was his way.
Yeah, and we've all been through other managers and the way they do things, and everybody's different. But Jack made it such an environment that we all loved coming. And we all loved being part of it, and it wasn't overcomplicated, and we trained hard, we worked hard, and we knew exactly. But the other thing about it was that we were all of a decent age. Like, I was one of the younger guys in the team when Jack took over, I was 26 years old. So 10 years later, I was still around 35 years old. So we were all a good group. We could handle ourselves. We could sleep, we could do the things. We didn't have to be mollycoddled or told what to do. We actually did it. So Jack managed us in a way that treated us as adults.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It sounds like he treated you like grown ups.
When it come to the referee blowing the whistle, there were players that could play as well.
Yeah. Let's go to the World Cup then. When I say Italia 90 to all three of you, what's the first thing that you would say back, David? First,
I just think it was an unbelievable adventure, and the thing what was John started at the very start of the programme. You were asking, we were all hearing what was going on in Ireland. What we were hearing was any time we were playing, there was nobody walking the streets of Ireland. Everybody was just unbelievable there, and it was just an unbelievable adventure with a group of people who we never thought we'd get so far, and we ended up in Rome. And Packy started introducing us to the Pope in that way, you know. But it was an amazing adventure, I'd have to say. And
the Pope one was we acclimatised in Malta, didn't we?
Yeah.
For 10 days.
Can I interrupt?
Hard, wasn't it?
Can I interrupt? You're saying about the thing, and I'll let you finish up. We were asked the way the lads travel now, and we're talking a great bunch of players. Yeah. And that we went to Turkey to play in Izmir, and then we were going after Izmir to go to Malta.
Oh.
Now, great. The lads, I seen the lads, the charter lads there, this squad going out last week and just gone into Poland now. We after the game in Izmir, the following morning we got up. Izmir, if we'd had taken a charter like all the other teams, Izmir to Malta, so we're training base, would have taken about 2.5 hours, 3 hours. We flew from Izmir to Istanbul, waited about 3 or 4 hours, got on a plane, went from Istanbul to Malta, waited for 3 or 4 hours, and then from Istanbul to Rome, and then from Rome to Malta. It felt like when we landed in Malta, we're landing in Australia. That is how long it took, and that was what would the team put up with. That was the way we did it. But the lads just got on with it, and we had a
didn't bother us.
No one complained.
And we had a base in Malta, and Scotland played Malta, and they went out and we went out and played Malta. I think it was about 5 or 6 days. We beat Malta about 5-0, I think, of that way. But John will tell you more.
On the way to Rome for the actual World Cup, you know, we're on the plane and we're talking about Mick Byrne, and Mick Byrne stood up in front of everyone and said, "Jack, look, if we get the quarter-finals and play Italy in Rome, can you get me to see the Pope?" Do you remember, Pat? And Jack looked at him and said, "Mick, if we get the quarter-finals," he said, "I'll get everyone to
I
see
think
the
it was
Pope."
the final, actually. I think it was the final he meant.
Did he?
We didn't know we were going to be in Rome in the quarter-finals.
We get the quarter-finals, you know, the Dave's penalty, and the winner, and Mick Byrne, there's always footage of that Mick Byrne you see jumping all over Jack, and he can't get him off. He's got him round his neck saying, "We're seeing the Pope now, Jack, aren't we?" Anyway, we didn't think nothing about it. The following Wednesday, Jack Charlton somehow, Bishop Farquhar, was it?
Bishop Farquhar from Belfast, and
he arranged it.
Cardinal
He got us to see
Brady.
I've noticed we were watching Packy in the Pope, by the way. So nothing else, but no, it was great.
We couldn't get a look in.
It was absolutely fantastic. No, we did it. You know, that was Jack Charlton for you.
What was your memory of Italy more than anything else?
For me, it was we were in a football nation. When I compared actually Italy to compare later on when we went to the States in '94, two completely different environments. Italy was a place you wanted to play the World Cup finals because everybody was interested in football. If we weren't playing on a particular night when the hype was around us or England, Italy was playing or somebody else, so there was always a hype around it. It was fantastic. Of course, we were in Sardinia in the first game, and you know, not easy. And then down in Sicily, we were probably in the worst part of Italy to start off with, but we were still enjoying. The fans were so hyped up because we had the taste of it in the European Championships. Now the whole country was behind us, and it felt as if the whole country was actually in Italy, but they weren't. They were partying back in Ireland. But it was just a wonderful occasion. I think the build up to we were never homesick, or we were not I can't say homesick. We were never bored. We seemed to get on with it. We were a great team together. And actually later on we went to the quarterfinals. We were up in Rapallo, up in Genoa, and that's where Scotland was based. And I remember going back talking to Paul McStay and a few of the guys from the Celtic team who was in the Scotland squad, and they were so bored being in Rapallo. Now Rapallo's hotel, we replaced them in that hotel. It was a 5-star luxury hotel, the best hotel ever. And I said, "How can you be bored in that?" We were down in Sicily in a 3-star hotel, and
no air conditioning, was it?
Nothing. Yeah, but there was a big fan. I always remembered myself and Jerry Payton was rooming together, and in the air conditioning in the room was a big fan, and it was going round and round, and you couldn't sleep at night with the noise of it, so you had to switch it off to try to get some sleep, and then it just got absolutely boiling, and it was incredible. And that was the the conditions we were in. I remember also after training, we used to put our gloves and jerseys and different things out on the balcony. And I was out and we were getting changed, and I went out to pick up my gloves, and I had, well, I won't say I had nothing on, I had something on, but I went out to pick up my gloves, and the wee woman that cleaned the room opened the door, and the door of the balcony shut, and it smashed everywhere, and I couldn't I was standing out naked out.
All right, back
and there were people running around.
Come on, tell us.
And Jerry was
tell us
inside,
the honest story here.
I couldn't move, don't move. The glasses everywhere, you know. I was telling them one glove covered, one glove covered where I should have covered. But this was it. So that was the conditions. But I couldn't help but laugh when I talked to the Scottish guys then about the conditions they were in, and they were bored, and we were actually totally enjoying the whole experience. Fantastic.
Is this story true that a lorry of Guinness pulled up outside your hotel one day at Italia 90?
I'll tell you a story now. It can be told, or it can be nice. I think the Thursday night before we were playing Italy in Rome,
that was when the Guinness bar came.
The Guinness bar came, so you got it up, and I hope we could say it now.
Yeah.
And the fella next to me, John Aldridge, is the one I always remember him. We were having food, and we have to come downstairs past this little where the Guinness people have set this bar. And John Aldridge through the meal is saying to Jack, "Come on, Jack, give us a half." And he's saying now, this is, and he's going, "I know with you, although I give you a half where it'll end up." I know where it'll end up. Jack gave us a half, and I remember 2 a.m. I think Jack's on his
Wasn't
knees.
Quite, he's exaggerating now. He's exaggerating.
What is it, 1 o'clock? Jack's on his knees, going around the room. I think Andy Townsend is doing something, playing game. The Italian security are looking and thinking, "No, this is not the team that's playing Italy on Saturday."
That's the 48 hours before the quarter-final.
Am I getting that right?
I think you're exaggerating a wee bit, but we did have a couple of pints again. We had a couple of
pints, and it was brilliant because you could actually cut the air with the anxiety.
Yeah.
Because when you get to that stage, the quarterfinals 48 hours away, less than that, and as a player, you just want to get on with it. You want to play it. So Jack let us go get all the lads, come outside, and you just can have a couple of pints. We hid 1 or 2 under the table, so we ended up having about 3, 4 pints. But what Dave's right, there's 20 or 30 of the top security police watching us. We're having pints of Guinness. You know, the Italians are in bed resting and all that. But that's the way we were. Jack knew it wouldn't harm us. It settled us down and it relaxed us. And we had a bit of banter that night. Do you remember the game? We got Jack home with the penny. Andy Townsend.
I think, as I said, that's what I was trying to think about, and it was just amazing.
Quality.
But he was dead right about it. You know, give all to a half, and then it ended up into a party.
Let's talk about how you got to take on Italy, because in the knockout stage, having got through the group, it was Ireland against Romania in Genoa. Both sides scored their first 4 penalties, and then this.
And Timofte must score now, otherwise Ireland could be in. Timofte against Bonner, and Bonner saves! Dives to his right, and Paddy Bonner elects to go the right way, and Timofte has failed from the spot.
Look at you smiling. That's what. I love watching how players react when they hear commentary of themselves.
Have you watched that?
I watched it. I watched it this afternoon. I have to say.
I know, and I keep every time I go back to Ireland to do something, people still show it on a little YouTube screen or whatever, you know, and they show it, of course, and it's a fantastic moment.
It's a magic moment, wasn't it?
I was really enjoying that particular shootout because up until that, I had very little to do in the tournament. And the Romanian game was a tough game because it was sort of around about 5 o'clock. They had Hadji playing in the game, who was they were a good team, and Hadji was an exceptional player, and he actually played well in the game and had a couple of saves. So I was on a real high going into the penalties. I'd done my homework with Jerry Payton up in the room. And I came off
because Hadji took the first penalty, didn't he? And the first penalty was a sensational penalty from him. And did you think at that stage, crikey, they've obviously been practicing their penalties?
Yeah, absolutely. We were practicing our own penalties, and Dave will tell the story and why he came up to take a penalty afterwards. But I went the right way for every single penalty, and it was down to, and I must admit, Jerry Payton was fantastic, older than me, more experienced, and I had come out of a Scottish Cup final just before that championships, and I only had gone the right way for 1 out of 9 penalties. So we got beat against Aberdeen, so I had a bit of work to do. And talking to Jerry, we had sorted out a sort of almost a system and how they ran up to the penalty. And Timofte came up for the last penalty, and I'd gone the right way, and I was in a real high. and it wasn't a great penalty. It was struck about a metre off the ground. There was no great pace.
It was a funny run up, Pat.
And it was, he stood at an angle, and he stood at a big angle, and knew exactly where he was putting it. And the great thing about penalties, as you know, a shootout, you don't have to catch it, you don't have to knock it to safety, you just keep it out of the net. But there's a thing actually in that penalty shootout that people don't realise. We had a Brazilian referee, and I
couldn't have told you now.
And he was really strict. And I remember we were all up in the centre circle before the penalty shootout, and the guys were selected. We didn't know actually who was taking it. The only person I knew that was taking a penalty was Kevin Sheedy. And they had said to me, right at that moment, that was about 10 minutes before the penalty shootout, he said, I'm going to knock it straight down the middle. And that's exactly what he did when he walked up. So he was clued in and he was totally focused. But the referee made us all pull our socks up. I remember that. And they had really strange rules in FIFA, and nobody was allowed to run outside the penalty. They had to stay in the centre circle, apart from the penalty taker and the two goalkeepers. And it was the fourth penalty, and when I saved it, the two guys ran all the way from the centre circle, all the way down into the box, and jumped on top of me was Andy Townsend and Tony Cascarino. Yeah. And I was trying to put them back up there. Say, guys, you've got to go back up there, because my fear was that this will have to be retaken again. That was what was going through my mind. And then when I looked round, I couldn't believe it, but I seen Dave O'Leary walk, and nobody could believe that Dave O'Leary.
We didn't know he was taking a penalty.
A man who had never had a penalty in his life.
I thought, no chance.
I played with that many great players, international wise, club level. Never got a look in. I always kind of fancied it.
Did you?
But when that game finished at the end of extra time, I ended up with the fifth. I could have been taking the first. It was everybody in that group said, I'll have number one, I'll have number two, and I ended up with the fifth one. And I remember, it's funny, Packy was saying about the fussiness.
Did you say I'll have the fifth, or just other people?
And then everybody had gone in and jumped in and taken what they'd taken, and the fifth one was the one left. Honestly, that's the way it happened. And I remember leaving the centre circle, and the last fella I passed by was Kevin Sheedy, and he said to me, don't change your mind. So I was going up there, and we had all our supporters behind that goal. There was thousands of them there, all in green. And looking back now and thinking back what Packy was saying, I went and got the ball and said, I'm going to hit it to the goalkeeper's left. Put the ball down, and the referee maybe replace again. I remember I couldn't understand. What? We're talking nothings here. Step back, and I thought.
And you had to turn around and show him your number as well, didn't you?
Now thinking back, very finicky, very fussy. And then all of a sudden, for the first time in 2 hours, that green of thousands and thousands of supporters are so still behind the goal. And I just thought, I'm going to hit it with a bit of pace to the goalkeeper's left. And I was hoping he'd dive the other way or whatever, and the ball hit the net, and this explosion behind the goal. Then the biggest mistake standing still, the explosion of all the lads coming, on top of you. And it was just amazing.
It was very funny when you watch it.
Yeah.
Because you were in the middle of it, and everybody ran from the bench, and all the players from the centre circle all ran, and they all jumped on top of you. And little Charlie O'Leary, if you watch it closely, we were talking about Kit Man, he's only 4 foot tall, and he ran, and you could see him running away with his wee short legs, and he got to the group, and he tried to jump up on top of everybody, but he couldn't get up, and he kept falling back down. It was too small. And it was so funny, but everybody was in it, the staff, the players, the bench, everybody.
And as John and Packy was saying, I had my mum and dad in Dublin. I remember my mum saying, when they seen me coming up for the fifth, my dad got onto the front floor, he was kneeling nearly praying that way. My wife stepped outside in the garden in North London, not thinking, she didn't think I'd be ever taking the penalties. She's thinking, don't want those lads, I can't put up with this. My son runs out, he was about 7 at the time, and said, Dad scored, and she went, don't be so stupid. Honestly, don't be so stupid. And she comes back in thinking, is it over? And thinking, have they won? Not thinking I'll be taking it. And this replay of me, the way I was fortunate, it just worked out lucky. I was on the fifth one.
I can't play Packy's commentary and not play David's commentary. So let me play David's commentary.
Now, if anyone has a cool head on those broad shoulders, it's David O'Leary. The referee unhappy with where he places the ball on the spot. O'Leary does as he's told. Lung, the keeper, waits, crouching, ready to dive. O'Leary doesn't hesitate, comes up and scores! Goes down on his his knees, head to the ground, and it's all green. It's all Ireland. They're through to the World Cup quarter-finals.
Were you, if you'd have thought about your family and what they were doing back home, would you have been more nervous?
At the time I wasn't, but when I think back now, anywhere I go, or the amount of people since then have told me, I've met a heart surgeon he was in the Mayo Clinic in Rochester in America, and he'd watching it. I've letters from all over the world of Irish people that were watching that, and I think for all the caps I'd have for Ireland, if I'd have missed that penalty, that's what you'd have been remembered for, if you know what I mean. And it's just as amazing now that anywhere you go and still go, you know, people say about the penalty. I'm sure as Packy was saying about that, that's what you kind of remembered for. You don't realise it at the time. I think it's probably worse for people watching, and it's probably worse for people more watching when they see me step up actually to take it.
It's worse for people who miss them, like I did in '88. That's what you get reminded from. That's all I ever get reminded from. But Dave's quite right.
So because of your experience of '88, what was going through your head, your stomach at that time?
I come off half time. I something happened with muscle, like a lazy muscle, and I couldn't run. But just before half time, I'd done something really stupid. Hadji was brilliant. I thought, I'm gonna maim him. I'm gonna do something to his leg. You know what I mean? So right in front of the bench, you can get on YouTube. I give him this tattle. It's ridiculous. And the referee, when I think about it, I should have been sent off. You know, I've just tried to, nullify him to help out the lads. I should have got a red card. Was that lucky? You only give me a yellow card. Then obviously at half time I come off, but I tried to do him before half time. He'd been down to 10 men.
He was special that day, and I think, like he was saying at the start, the ball was moving. He was a great striker of the ball, and he'd hit a few strikes at Packy that you made a couple of good saves from him.
Dangers, they were well outside. But the other thing about a penalty shootout is, I've lived on this penalty save for probably the last 20 years. Dave maybe to a point on scoring, but you had Tony Cascarino, you had Andy Townsend, you had Ray Houghton, and you have Kevin Sheedy, all guys who went up and struck very, very important.
Oh, I don't know about that. Did you see Cassis?
But he scored. The most important thing. I know he did, and we talk about that, and I think the David went past the goalkeeper's eye and put him off.
And the thing was, I was the fortunate one that I could have easily been the first one taking it. I was the one that seemed to be on the glory one, and you're the one that seemed to,
it was fantastic.
It was the four before that set it up for you, and Packy saved.
But a lot of bottle. It takes a lot of bottle, and we had 5 lads who went up there and showed great bottle.
We've heard the memories of Packy Bonner and John Aldridge and David O'Leary on the penalty shootout. Let's get Jack Charlton's thoughts.
I just went, at the end of the game, I went on the field and I walked across, and I just said to the lads, sit down, you get a rest. When it's your turn, take the ball, put it down, make your mind up what you're going to do with it, and do it. Don't change your mind. Just put the ball down, make your mind up what you're going to do, and go do it. Which they did, and 5 out of 5 we got. When we used to train, no matter where we were, at the end of the game, the lads would have a bet on penalty shootout. They would have a bet. A goalkeeper would go in goals, and somebody would say, "Wait, I'll get 3 past you, 20 quid or 100 quid, 50 quid," and they used to back them. And me and Morris used to go and sit in the bus and wait for them to finish, because they did it all themselves. And I'd said to Morris, because he was complaining one day about us not getting back to the hotel as quick as we should in the bus. And I said, no, you never know, Morris, if we get involved in a penalty shootout, they know who's the best penalty takers, and that's the ones that will take the penalties. And sure enough,
all the betting worked out then.
I tell you, the lads can contradict me. Niall Quinn was running the book, and we'd been on the road for 6 or 7 weeks, and the thing was with Jack, we trained in the morning and you back to this hotel and then get your feet up in the afternoon. So after training, we tried to think, let's hold on for a little bit, and Niall Quinn would get in goal and he'd say 3 penalties, a fiver. That way.
Scored all 3,
and we were all there and we were practicing. Not practicing, that's the way it was going. And then we'd get on the coach and Jack would be waiting there, another half hour waiting on you, mob, or that. Quinny'd walk up and down the coach saying up X amount of money or down X amount of money and all this. And the lads that took those penalties in the end were the ones that Quinny owed a lot of money to.
Absolutely. You got to remember,
he was a great goalkeeper, by
he
the way.
was, but you got to remember, Ned Quinn's 6'5", and he put the glove. Once he put the gloves on, he became 6'7", and he stood in the goal, and you couldn't. He just fall down. You couldn't beat him. But we started off with 20 quid. But Dave couldn't afford 20 quid, so had to go down to a fiver. Just
I remember Jack joining in one game. Jack took a penalty one on it, and he missed, and that was him out of it. Couldn't get him taking it again.
I also like you bragging about the size of your gloves after your earlier story now. I've noticed that. David O'Leary and John Aldridge and Pat Bonner in the studio with me as we reminisce and remember Ireland under the Jack Charlton regime. We'll talk about that time when the lads met the Pope, and we'll go on to USA 94 as well in just a few moments after a news update with Faye Rusker.
Online at bbc.co.uk/5live.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
The Queen has described the last 4 days of Diamond Jubilee celebrations as a humbling experience in a message to say thank you to those who took part. Her Majesty also appeared on the balcony at Buckingham Palace to wave to well-wishers and enjoy an RAF fly-past. Prince Edward says the Duke of Edinburgh is getting better and has been watching events on TV. Prince Philip is in hospital with a bladder infection. One of the patients being treated for Legionnaire's disease at Edinburgh Royal Infirmary has died. NHS Lothian says it's now dealing with 17 confirmed and 15 suspected cases. The potential area of infection is thought to be around 7.5 miles in diameter. Al-Qaeda's second-in-command has been killed in a drone attack in Pakistan, according to the United States. American senior officials say Abu Yahya played a critical role planning operations against Western targets. And the United Nations says the Syrian government has agreed to allow aid agencies into the areas most affected by the violence. The UN estimates that at least 1 million people there need help.
Thank you, Faye. Novak Djokovic is through to the semi-finals of the French Open after surviving a real scare against the home favourite Jo-Wilfried Tsonga in Paris. Let's get more from our tennis correspondent, Jonathan Overend.
Yet again, Djokovic proves why he's the best player in the world, scrambling back from the brink of defeat with some daredevil tennis. As the magnificent Tsonga desperately tried to close out a thrilling match in the fourth set, Djokovic struck out ambitiously, seemingly oblivious to the gravity of the situation. He was maybe a little fortunate on one of the match points, Tsonga netting with a forehand as his eyes widened. But on the others, the man who's going for his fourth major in a row simply went for it. The same happened at the US Open last year when match points down in the semi-final. That's 6 match points he's saved on this extraordinary unbeaten Grand Slam run, which will now celebrate its 1-year anniversary when he plays Federer again on semi-final Friday.
Djokovic will meet Roger Federer in the last 4. Federer also needed 5 sets to reach the semi-finals, coming from 2 sets down to beat Juan Martín del Potro.
I knew it was going to be a tricky match, and I knew that margins were not on my side anymore, and that's where I just tried to get, keep playing tough, make him understand how far he still had to go as well, because I had a very long way, and I was able to do all of those things, and I was very happy the way I played, starting the third set.
In the women's draw, there were wins for Sam Stosur and Sara Errani. Manchester United had announced the signing of Shinji Kagawa from Borussia Dortmund. That's subject to a medical and a work permit. And in Australia, Scotland have beaten the Wallabies in their own backyard for the first time in 30 years, winning 9-6 in New South Wales.
A quick look at the roads, and one lane of the M25 anti-clockwise remains shut in Buckinghamshire between junction 16 at the M40 and junction 15 at the M4. A barrier is being repaired there and traffic is still flowing well. Now further round the M25, one lane is also shut at junction 14. That's Heathrow Terminal 4. A car's broken down there. In Surrey, the exit slip road at junction 2 of the M3 London bound was shut near Weybridge. There was an accident there. Now it has reopened, but there are still long queues back onto the main carriageway. And in Burton-upon-Trent, the A38 southbound is completely closed. A car has collided with the central barrier. That's between Branston Interchange and the Walton-on-Trent turn-off. Police are directing traffic, but the roads seem to be coping well. Faye Rusko, 5 Live Travel.
BBC iPlayer isn't just on your computer. You can now watch it almost anywhere. Catch up with episodes on your mobile.
Woohoo! Our star has arrived.
See who impressed the coaches on The Voice on the games console.
If you're looking for longevity, you're going to be with me.
Spend the evening with the doctor on an internet-connected TV. or find out what's happening in the boardroom on your tablet.
Basic business principles went right down the drain on this thing.
BBC iPlayer, now on mobile, tablet, internet-connected TV and games consoles. For details, visit bbc.co.uk/iPlayer.
They come from Dublin and from Cork, from Nero and Donegal, from London, Boston and New York, from anywhere at all, from Parramatta to Fairboy, Strabane to Skibbereen. And will the show go up when the World Cup is raised on Stephen's Green? Yes, it will! Surraloo! Surraloo! I'm a ball, Chuck Zeros, whatever.
This is Jackie's Army on 5 Live Sports. I'm Mark Chapman. We're looking back on Jack Charlton's Ireland reign with John Aldridge and Pat Bonner and David O'Leary. Before the news, we were talking about what happened 24 hours before the quarter-final against Italy, when the whole of the squad and Big Jack enjoyed a very special trip.
I didn't intend to see the Pope. It was there for the lads. And then a fella came across to me in the church, and he said, the Pope would like to meet you, Mr. Charlton. Would you come? And I said, yeah, sure. So I went down and I met John Paul. And I didn't know how to address him. I'm not a Catholic. But he was a very nice man. And when we got back, we went up to the north for a game, one of the games. And whenever I used to go to the match to see Northern Ireland play, they always used to sit me next to Bishop Farquhar, and I used to sit next to him, and we used to talk football and everything and what was happening on the pitch and stuff. And I was playing golf, and I looked up, and Bishop Farquhar was coming out of the building, and he's coming towards the putting green, and I shouted, "I'm Vicar." And he turned and he saw me and he went, "Hello, Jack." And he came, because I knew him quite well then, and he came across. And he said, I've just come back from Rome. He said, I've been out to see the Pope. And he said, and he asked how you were. I said, you what? He said, yeah. He said, and how is Mr. Charlton? Is he well?
I suppose it's no surprise that the Pope remembered him, is it, Pat, really?
No. It was an incredible day. That for us as Catholics, most of the squad, I'm sure we're Catholics, to get the opportunity to go to see the Pope. As we talked earlier, I think he had promised Mick Byrne, our physio, that he would take him if we got to the final, but we ended up in Rome, of course, in the quarter-final, so he had to fulfil that promise to Mick, and we got there. But it was a special day. We got to play. We got actually into places in the Vatican privately that nobody else would have got into areas where Michelangelo had
paintings that nobody's seen and describing them himself. And
it was really good. When we were in the audience then, we were there for about maybe 2.5 hours waiting for the Pope to come out, and one choir would get up and sit down, another choir would get... Now, we didn't get up to sing, I must admit that. But anyway, when it came down to it, then we got up to see the Pope, and I was brought up to front because I had saved a penalty and there was a lot of hype around it and so on, and apparently he was a goalkeeper when he was young in Poland, and he spoke to me and we shook hands, and that picture then ended up on all the papers and all over Ireland, and my mum's got a picture of it up in the house still. Wow. And that's but I must tell you a story. I must tell you now. I only found the story out about a year ago when I heard Andy Townsend telling it. We played Italy then in Rome, and of course I made that wonderful save, and Scalacci scored. They give me a bit of stick about it, but I thought it was a wonderful save myself. But anyway, Scalacci scores in that, and we were in the dressing room afterwards, very disconsolate, and we were sitting around and that, and Andy was standing talking to Jack. Jack was over at the shower room taking a cigarette and that, and I got up, stripped off, and into the shower, and as I went by, out of the corner of his mouth, he said to me, he said, the Pope would have saved that one. Now, I only heard this story a wee while about a year ago, so I can't say if it was true or not, but this is what's supposed to have happened, you know.
So. What was that dressing room like then after the defeat to Italy?
Yeah, we were down, you know. We knew we'd probably be the expectation. We succeeded, you know. We overdone it really. No one expected us to get there, but even still, we still fancied our chances, didn't we? We still thought, we can grind it down. The problem with speaking to Jack before, and we knew the referee would give us nothing.
Yeah.
And he didn't let us down there. I think he gave us one decision for 90 minutes. He didn't. He gave us nothing.
You know where the referee was from?
Spain.
No, he was Uruguayan.
Was he?
He was South American. And I don't know how you guys felt, but I always felt that we were never going to beat Italy in Rome.
Absolutely.
In the quarterfinal. An Irish team beating Italy in Rome. I always felt it was every time a ball was played up to our edge of our box and we challenged, there was a free kick against us. Every time it sort of came to the edge of our box and Mick or Kevin went up to head the ball, there was a free kick against Kevin or Mick.
And to cut to the chase, Packy, as well, I think we all felt as well, everybody that mattered, it was in their interest to get Italy through more than to mess the system up.
It's not an excuse, but
it's not an excuse, but I mean, it suited them, and I think everybody was all delighted to get that. Ireland have had a day, and
there was a relief on the Italian faces. I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, but I think it was Argentina got through.
We were playing Argentina.
Jack fancied whoever got through. He said you'll have an easier game. But you get the Argentina. He fancied us against Argentina. He had it all mapped out. Yeah. Unfortunately, the Italians, as the lads quite rightly said, we were never going to beat them. But we actually fancied our chances. Yeah. We were worried about the referee, and to be honest, he didn't let them down.
As you said, despite going out, it had been a successful tournament. You returned home as heroes. Jack recalls the masses of green-clad fans awaiting your arrival in Dublin.
We flew in, and the pilot took us up to O'Connell Street to see the crowd that was waiting for us, and it was packed. The whole street was packed. And then when we got to the airport, there was huge crowds waiting for us, and it took us about an hour to get into the buses and then get down into O'Connell Street. And we went along, and the people were climbing. We had to stop the bus a few times because there were kids climbing up pipes and things that were, planted in there. And we used to have to stop the bus because there were kids that might fall off that.
All three of you had witnessed victory parades and trophy celebrations, whether it be with Celtic or with Liverpool or with Arsenal. What was different about this?
It was different actually before we even landed. I'd been flying out of Dublin as a boy, and I'd flown in out of Dublin about 1 million times, and you're a window seat and you take off and you see the green grass. We came over back there that time, and so used to, as I say, for so many years landing in Dublin and seeing green grass. This time we flew over the airfield for one lap around, and all you could see was people there, and I'd never seen that in my life. From landing and taking off at that airport, and we knew what to expect, and when we landed, it was what we were been hearing for weeks and weeks about how the country had gone mad. The whole of Ireland seemed to have congregated around Dublin Airport, and then on our way in, as Jack said, from the getting in, which is about a 20-minute journey from Dublin Airport into O'Connell Street, took it, a couple of hours because of it was filled with what we've seen on the mall today around Buckingham Palace, the way you've seen that type of thing all the way into Dublin. Then we got into Dublin, into O'Connell Street, and it seemed, as I say, I'd never seen anything like it, and we might never see it again, really.
But you actually witnessed people up on lampposts, up on balconies, up on maybe 2-3 story high, and actually grown men crying with emotion, and it was incredible, the reaction back home. And as Jack rightly says, I wonder what would happen if we had won something. But it was emotion, and it was pride for our small country to go to a World Cup and take on the best in the world and actually perform and do well, and that emotion was shown in the day that we arrived back, and going in that bus was incredible. Actually, I got a little bit worried. I was I remember being up on the top deck, and I went downstairs, and I couldn't watch because I just felt there was going to be an almighty accident here. Somebody was going to get hurt, because it was just a crush.
Everyone was just trying to get as close as possible to us, and Jack was panicking big time because someone ran across. They were running in front of the bus. It was just madness. But it was a huge sense of pride.
Was it different? Was it different for you from any other open top bus parade?
Yeah, obviously with Liverpool. This was.
And I'd done that journey into Dublin as a boy from Dublin for so long, and I'd never ever, again, like I say, we flying over the airfield and you seen, nobody there to everybody around the airfield. Then to follow that road into Dublin, and then just knowing what it's usually like.
That's to be a million. There has to be a million.
See that
people
what it was like, amount of people.
A million people.
Probably got little memories still of when you drive in there still. That thinking, you think back to those days of everybody over the bridges and along the sides, and the whole of Ireland seemed to be congregating in Dublin that day.
And when you speak to people now, they tell you exactly what they were. And we were on that bridge, or we were on the side of the road, and they can pick it out with their families. And their families now, at that time they were kids. Now the families have grown up, and they're not embarrassed about it because it was a special moment in their lives.
I flew back to Italy the following day from that, and I got on the Aer Lingus plane. Never been so embarrassed in my life. Pilot said, we've got, not that I'm anybody on the plane, everybody stood up and started clapping. I was trying to slide down the seat more and hide, really. And it was just that way for all of us. Yeah. We've been told about it as the games went on in Italy, how the country had just soccer had taken over, and we've seen it then. The welcome we got back,
people haven't forgot that, because whenever I'm over in Dublin, so many times, and wherever you go, and you go for a pint of Guinness. One, it's like they breathe. One will come next to you and just say, I haven't ordered another one. And the fella across the bar, and he'll just tip his cap and go, thank you for the memories. The respect is absolutely immense over there for anyone who played for Jack Charlton, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I had the other emotion of going back down to Donegal, where I come from, way down in the northwest, and a different environment in Dublin, of course, where Dave was brought up, and not a city environment at all, but bonfires out in the hills, and coming and flying into the local airport, and the place just absolutely, and the people were just so overjoyed to be part of it. And the great thing for me, I felt, and I'm sure the guys are the same, is that it wasn't about us. It wasn't just me. We were doing this on behalf of everybody, and everybody was involved in it, because the fans felt very much part of the team. They were the team, actually.
Sport's amazing, isn't it?
My parents, we lived in a small little place in Dublin, and never thought anybody knew where we lived. My parents said to me that evening, about an hour after the game, it was like people coming to the churches, knocking up at the door. There was that many people coming to knock at the door, and my dad took my mum out for a drink to this local that they used to go to. Nobody'd ever say anything. They went in, did their usual thing. The whole pub stood up and started clapping. And the fella who'd never bought them a drink in their life sent a bottle of champagne over, and they don't drink that. They said they were so embarrassed. And that was just, the way.
Let's. My producer's doing that. He's beautifully structured this show, but there are so many stories that's gone out the window. I'm just listening and listening. So let's move on to USA '94. After 9 o'clock, we'll actually look at the current Ireland side and maybe what their chances are in Euro 2012. But as far as the World Cup in America was concerned, it took only 11 minutes for Ireland to make their mark against the Italians.
Coyne couldn't win that, but the Irish do. That one is goal! Totally against the run of play. It's Roy Houghton, and it's a chipper. It's got the backspin on it, and it drops down over the top of Pagliuca into the net.
It was Roy Houghton with a chipper, according to our American colleagues. I wonder if you went into that Italy game with, even though it was 4 years on, with a little bit of sense of let's try and get our own back on them after what happened in Rome.
It wasn't as biased, obviously, for what we expected in Italy. I'll tell you what, the big thing that hit me when we got into the Giants.
Hope you're going to say now what I'm thinking.
Giants Stadium. We were told to expect 70% of Italians in the stadium, and we're thinking, it's going to be a bit intimidating. Might give the referee problems. We went in there, and I'll tell you what, it was 70% Irish. It was unbelievable, and straight away you've seen the lads grow another 6 inches tall. Think, yes, the referee might get intimidated by our fans now, so we're even the balance out from the referee's point of view. It was a cracking game, you have to say. It was really close game, but
I'm glad John said, because if you say to me what do you remember, the brilliant result, but the thing that really stands out to me was the dominance of being told that Italy is going to take over the whole stadium. It was Ireland, and I remember a few days earlier, again a friend of John's, Kenny Dalglish, met Kenny in New York, and we ended up having something to eat or talking in an Italian restaurant, and the Italian was saying, you Irish, you got no chance, and we're going to take over the stadium. So it was built up that way, and it was frightening. My wife sat in the stadium, and she sat with a person that had come all the way from Australia, an Irish person, to watch it, and she said all around her was people from all over the world, Irish connection, who for somehow got tickets, and it was like playing a home match there. And that's my memory of the game.
Were you a different group of players because you'd had the experience of Euro 88 and World Cup 90? You weren't, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but there wasn't the naivety, there wasn't the fresh face of tournament football with you guys in this one.
We had changed the squad around a little bit also. We had Brian, Gary Kelly, Phil Babb, Jason, young Jason. They were the young group. Roy was starting to become a main player in the team, and he was the captain. So we had changed the team around. Some of the older guys had left. Some of us, John would have been probably the oldest member of the squad. We were coming probably to the final stage of our international career, and we had prepared down in Orlando, which was really difficult because the weather was incredibly warm down there.
Did you get much to do that game? You know the way you were saying with the other game?
Not a lot. I remember one save maybe in the game and that, but it was about trying to organise and keep yourself. But what I really was going to say, we had prepared in Orlando, and I know fans who had travelled out for the game in New York felt it was so warm. For us, it wasn't too bad. We were coming up from Orlando into that New York heat, but it wasn't as bad. So we actually could cope with it. And the funny thing was, and not many people know this actually, when we went out to start the game, the referee blew the whistle, and we went out the door, turned left, and as you turn left, you go down into the tunnel in the Giant Stadium, and the Italians were standing waiting for us. And as we went down, we were wearing the same colour strip as the Italians. And then quite incredible. We had white strips on. They had white strips on. Now it was a blunder by the FIFA people themselves, because we had met them. I think Charlie and the guys had met them earlier in the day, and we were told our colours. But we were forced to go back inside, change our strips within probably about 5 minutes into green, and the Italians were still waiting for us in the tunnel when we came back out. Now for us, it was an advantage. We had to rush around a bit, of course, and trying to get our strips on and so on. But Italians were there in boiling heat, still standing in tunnel, and they didn't start off as quick or as demanding as we thought they would in that particular game. Was
there something unsettled in the camp? Was there something going on as well? Was it the typical Italian build-up of
within the Italians?
Yeah. Was
I'm
it
not
the
so
press
sure.
being given them stick or something?
I'm not so sure. Baggio was the main guy up front. He didn't really play well in the game. They had Baresi, of course, who was still
Paul
playing.
McGrath. For any young lad who wants to watch a centre-half play and learn from, that's the most complete performance I've seen from a centre-half that day from Paul McGrath. He was incredible, unbelievable. Everything, he was
never trained. He was an incredible player, never trained.
And do you know what? That 90 minutes, you just watch how he defended. It was just the best performance.
And Ray's goal was an incredible goal, because we played a lot of long ball, and Jack actually told me before the game, and leading into that, I think Dave Seaman was probably not Dave, your Arsenal goalkeeper.
English.
David Seaman.
David Seaman. He started off just going out to the box and kicking the ball long. And suddenly Jack said to me, "You need to go out to the box and start kicking it long." And I've never done that in my life. And suddenly I was trusted to do this in the World Cup and the start of it. So anyway, that's how we played the game. Again, knocking it into areas. And Baresi was playing in the back, if you remember. And he struggled, but the ball broke to Ray, and he kind of almost half hit it somehow, and it looked over.
Wasn't swinger, as John said.
Left foot, and his only goal he scored was
left foot. But Luca was in goal. He was so far off his line. He was about 8 or 9 yards off his line, and just looked over the top of him. And it was the only way he probably could have got beat with that shot. Incredible. But his celebration was a thing. His celebration, the way he ran, the way he did his roly-poly, and he got up.
He didn't know what to do. He just rolled over.
It was a fantastic.
He was on the wall, wasn't he?
Dave was sank to his knees. He just rolled over.
Packy, you mentioned Orlando. Of course, Orlando in the blisteringly hot Citrus Bowl was the stadium for the match against Mexico. The game you lost 2-1. But I think, as most of us know, the match was better known for a touchline bust-up that Jack Charlton had with a FIFA official, and John was right in the middle of it.
There was a guy in a blue coat and a yellow hat. I remember a blue coat and a yellow hat. He came on and he snatched it out of Charlie's hand. And he said, "I FIFA man, I check this." John's waiting to get onto the field. But the referee can't let him on the field because he hasn't got the sheet that the guy's got and is buggered off with. The lads were just standing about. And I went to him and I was saying, I want that sheet. He's got to get that. And he's going, I report you. I report you. And apparently I got fined, but I never saw it. Never paid it.
You never paid it?
No.
You did get fined, actually. We both got fined.
Did you? Do you get fined as well?
$2,500. Jack got fined $12,500.
Did it? He's never seen it, paid it.
No, we didn't pay it. But this is how generous Irish people are. When they found out how unfairly we'd been, which it was unfair, what happened, definitely. They had the whip round for me and Jack all around Ireland and collected 96 grand in all the pubs and clubs. That's true. That's true, yeah, it's true.
I mean, it was actually quite serious, wasn't it? The whole water bottle thing.
It was. That was on Jack's mind as well. You know, there was a lot of things playing. But what happened in the Mexico game, we couldn't, this heat that we're going on about, we couldn't play our normal setup in the faces. You know, it was just, you couldn't recover when you made the run, you couldn't get your breath, you couldn't recover. So our game in the faces, we couldn't do it. So they got more time to play around us. They were used to the heat and they played absolutely brilliant. You've got to give them, you know, credit where it's due. But the reason why they won was the heat factor. Absolutely. Definitely, yeah.
I remember John Dennis Irwin was playing right back, and he was up against one of the Mexican guys, and he was just running around. And Dennis was a really, really good player. Great player. And he was a great defender, 1-on-1. He just couldn't get near him. And Campos, remember Campos in goals? He was the smallest goalkeeper ever. We said, we'll take this guy on. We'll score. We couldn't get into the box to do it.
You had the most ridiculous goalkeeping kit in that.
That's right. Yeah.
But you were glad you didn't have that kit to
Actually, my son got it, and he has it somewhere in the house.
Was it the heat that did for you, do you think, in that tournament in the end?
It was just ridiculous, wasn't it? It was so hot.
12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, and John made the good point of the game was about pressing game and about getting into people, not letting them play and all that. But if you did it, you couldn't do that for 90 minutes.
No chance.
Couldn't do it even for 45 minutes, really.
You do it for 5 minutes.
Yeah, the heat killed us.
Yeah, with no plan B, but that was our big issue.
Might agree with me, I don't know. I actually thought that squad of players with the experience we had and the young talent coming in, I thought it was as good as the 1990 squad. I really did, you know.